Hi everyone, my name is Dulce Maria Nunez. I am a teacher in Columbia Heights Educational Campus. I work for Disney Public Schools, graduated from Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Honduras. I also have a teacher certificate, and it's a great honor for me to be here. Um, I'm going to be talking about scaffolding for student success. I decided to go for this topic since this is something that I personally use in my classroom on a daily basis. This is a game changer. Um, we're going to be talking about some techniques that I use with my students and some things that I have been using during online learning that I think that you can all benefit for. I think that this can be useful since there are some strategies that you could easily write down and see how they work so you can implement them with your students. So to get in the right mindset today, to start discussing and talking and learning about this, I would like to share with you some video that's not necessarily about scaffolding, but it's for us to get like to have an idea
It's just,
of
there's all this
what's our
pressure,
starting
you know?
point.
And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just...
Don't!
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can't go on?
Okay, so after seeing this video, I decided to use this in the presentation because one of the things that happened to me, and I'm sure that you're probably familiar with this, is that sometimes your students don't understand or they're not asking you questions which are, practically or equally the same. So instead of asking them like what's wrong, how can I help you, or how can I make things easier or accessible for you, accessible will be the right word, we just don't listen. We just go and assume that that probably the student is not doing the work because they don't want to, or probably because they're being lazy, or whatever reason that we think. Mostly now that I think everyone is just overwhelmed, and we just don't stop and think. But before doing something, make sure you talk to your students, make sure you understand them, and then they get you back. Like, why do I said this, or why I want you to do this? Like, and when I said why I want you to do this, I want you to be purposeful on like, I'm doing this for you because I want you to produce this. I want you to do this by the end of the unit, or I want you to understand this, or you're gonna need this by the end. So they can see that this is not something that you just want to teach them, but it's actually something that they're going to need later on the unit. So scaffold, when we talk about scaffold, I really like this definition because the beginning of this definition, this phrase, enable the student, was a very recurrent phrase that I found in different definitions. So this one, enable the student to solve a problem. So scaffolding refers more, moving a little bit forward with this, to a variety of instructional techniques that are going to help the students to move progressively. Progressively is a key word here. Progressively. They're going to move from A to point B, but they're not going to move in a straight line. they're going to move like from point A, they're going to move here and then here and then here and then here until they get to the point B. So all those points to get over here, we are going to create them in the process, but we are not reinventing the wheel. So we're just trying to adopt some things that can help this process easier for our students. So the benefits of scaffolding. So I really like this because one of the things that is going to be is going to change in the classroom is your whole learning environment, because you are going to have in your classroom, sorry, a supportive learning environment, and also your students are going to be free to feel free to ask questions. And also remember that the teacher, when it comes to scaffolding, like you're not going to be the expert in the classroom. Like the expert can be like, you can work in teams and you are going to assign like a team leader. So that team leader is going to be your expert. That's going to be leading the discussion in that specific table, or it's going to be making sure that everyone is working. So that's going to be your leader. Okay. Um, and also, as they move on to leadership roles, they are going to be taking a more active role in their own education. Like they're going to be engaging and they're going to be really compromised um, when it comes to the process. They are going to be taking part in the classroom. So the teacher must adopt the role of facilitator, not a content provider. What am I saying this? I don't know about you, but I have the problem of talking a lot. I talk a lot, like a lot. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I enjoy teaching, because I'm constantly talking. But at some point, this is a problem because when I'm talking about whatever topic in the classroom, I am, instead of giving that time to my students, I am taking them, like taking it away from them. How many of you have been in the classroom and then you have 45 minutes to teach, but in those 45 minutes you were talking for 35, and then your students only have 10 minutes to do the work or to practice whatever thing they were supposed to do on their topic? So because we're gonna be facilitators in this process, we're gonna give more time to our students so they can practice it and they can um, master the knowledge that's being teach. I mean, that's being taught in the classroom at that moment. Okay, this is the process. This is the process, the learning process that we're gonna be taking part of when we're doing scaffolding in the classroom. So the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to determine what students already know or their prior knowledge. Like for example, like I'm going to start the classroom and I'm going to talk about, like in my classroom right now, I'm talking about immigration. So I'm talking about immigration, I'm talking about families, I'm talking about um, households, I'm talking about a house. Okay, so I'm gonna see and I'm gonna start my lesson, and this is just an idea. One of the things that I could do is like write a simple vocabulary in the classroom, and then for example, like tell my students, okay, everyone take a piece of paper and then you're gonna write one sentence about each one of these words. Okay, and you don't necessarily have to give them like the whole topic in advance, right? You just want them to write and to think about that specific topic so you can have the setting ready to speak about that. Now that I already start talking about this, I'm gonna set my goal for learning, and based on what I see on my writing, right, maybe I can see for some of my students, I can see a well-constructed response, or for some of them, I'm just gonna see isolated words that doesn't necessarily make sense, but they're trying if they're a language learner, or I can see an advanced learner, and that advanced learning is providing me with a short paragraph. So based on that, I'm gonna be setting my goal. Let's say I'm gonna start writing. I'm gonna start writing an essay, right? I want to write an essay to make an analysis of the household situation in the DMV area, because I want to know how immigrant families are living, or how, for example, like a family who's living in poverty is living, like how are they doing to pay their expenses. And we are going to analyze the minimum wage, like is it fair or not. So that's a topic that's going to give us a lot of discussion, and that's something that's going to be a, like it's going to make us have a lot of conversation and be able to build up on that. Now, based on that, I'm going to plan my instructional supports or skills. What strategies or my skills, how can I break that down? So we're going to write that essay, right? But I remember that I told you that I had three types of students when I was setting my goal. So I had my students that wrote a paragraph, I had a student that wrote sentences, and I had a student that wrote isolated words. How am I going to break that down? I'm going to need three things for this, for each set of students, because I guarantee you that you're not only going to find those three students. You're going to find, like in your groups of 30 students, different students that can be placed in those three groups. Now, I'm going to break that down in order to make sure that I can complete that big chunk of work, but I'm going to decompose it into small parts in order, so in order to for everyone to have access to that work. Now, I have that chunks. I'm going to implement my lessons, and I'm going to move those short lessons of probably like 45 minutes, when I'm going to have like probably 15 minutes, just 15 minutes of a mini lesson where I'm going to show my key points to my students. And then they're going to work, because of the first 5 minutes I do now, 15 minutes of my lesson, and then the next part of the work is independent work for my student. Now, since this is going to be a routine in the classroom, routines are key element in the classroom. I'm going to fade my support over time. Like as I start to see my kids understanding what I want them to understand, I'm going to start to slowly back away, so they can start constructing things on their own. And then I'm just going to keep on building, keep on moving, keep on building with that knowledge. Um, Now, I know that sounds very pretty, but it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work, but like I said, it's not reinventing the wheel. There are there's a large number of resources that you can find out there on the web, or websites that you could use, in order to achieve your goals. So, for example, like I divided this topic in two big sets. Like the first ones are gonna be verbal scaffolds, and the second one are gonna be procedural scaffolds. So the first ones, I'm sure that you're probably familiar with. Remember that I told you that I wanted to start my topic with the sample that I just gave you, with eliciting vocabulary. So I have some of them over here that are probably similar. I have the first one, which is a think aloud. I also have engage and read aloud. These two are connected, of course, in which the teacher is going to model pronunciation. Um, and I really like this second one because it has the word model instead of correcting. So if I'm in the language classroom, if I'm learning English or if I'm learning Spanish, it's going to be easier to digest for my student if I repeat the word for them, or if I model the reading for them, instead of like, that's wrong, like you have to say it this way, o tiene que decirlo así, if I'm teaching Spanish, because I teach English and Spanish here. So that's going to be easier to digest to the student, that instead of having that correction in front of everyone in the classroom. Now, slow your speech when you're trying to speak to a student who is in a level 1, who is on a level 2, so they can follow what you are saying. This is really hard for me. Reinforce contextual definitions. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, and also simplify questions. I have some examples for you about each one of those techniques here, because like I said, this is something that I use in the classroom often, like regularly on a daily basis. So the first one that I have is the think aloud and the read aloud. So I'm gonna share just a portion of this video.
My name is Mr. Brewer, and this is my student Locke, and we're going to model a think aloud. Now, think aloud is simply a way that you can help your child comprehend by talking about strategies you can use while reading a book. So we're going to do 3 strategies today. We're going to do a fix-up strategy, a make connections, and a create images. So Locke is going to read from Shiloh, and I'm going to stop him in just a little bit, and we're going to talk about some of the strategies here. So we're going to start right there.
And this particular afternoon, I'm about halfway up the road along the river when I see something out of the corner of my eye. Something moves. I look, and about 15 yards off, there's a short-haired dog, white with brown and black spots, not making any kind of noise, just slinking along with his head down, watching me, tail between his legs, like he's hardly got the right to breathe. A beagle, maybe a year or 2 old. I stop. The dog stops. Looks like he's been caught doing something awful, when I can tell all he really wants is to follow along beside me. Here, boy, I say, slapping my thigh. The dog goes down on his stomach, groveling about in the grass. I laugh and start over toward him. He's got a worn-out old collar on, probably older than he is.
All right, we're going to do a fix-up strategy here. Now, Locke, do you know what groveling means?
No.
No. So here's what it says about groveling. It says, dog was down on his stomach, groveling about in the grass. So when we think of a fix-up strategy, we're going to reread it a couple times, and then think of the context clues and what would possibly make sense. So, dog was down on his stomach, groveling about in the grass. What do you think it might mean?
It might mean rolling around.
Okay, and I got my little Webster's dictionary here, and here's what it says groveling means. To grovel means to creep or lie face down on the ground. So, Locke, that confirms his prediction there, that was groveling, was rolling around on the grass. We're also going to do a making connections. So when we make a connection, what we're going to do is we're going to think about how this story relates to something that we know. So I was telling Locke earlier that this summer we had a little dog in the middle of the road, and my son Joan and I were driving by in our car, and we just about ran over this dog. And so we got out. It's like 9:30 at night, a little black dog. We went to all the neighbors, and nobody knew whose dog it was, so we took it home. Well, the next morning when we got up, there's this lady going through, and I can't remember the dog's name, so we'll call the dog Lucy. But she's going through on her rollerblades going, Lucy, Lucy. And we run out there, and the lady, we said, we've got a dog here. And she said, well, that's my dog, and she's crying, and she's just so happy that she found her dog. And we said, well, yeah, the dog was really shaking last night. And we picked her up, and she wouldn't let us go to the dog, and we said, well, what happened last night? And she said, well, the neighbors were lighting off fireworks, and so the dog was really scared. And so it kind of reminded me a little bit of Shiloh, how Shiloh was really scared, how it was kind of shaking, wouldn't go next to the boy, and so it reminded me of this dog that wouldn't go next to us. So the next comprehension strategy.
Okay, so when the teacher was talking to the boy in the read aloud, they also did a think aloud, like over here. So in that think aloud, they were saying their ideas, of course, out loud, and they were using it for vocabulary purposes and, of course, for comprehension. So I would say that this really helps the students stay focused. You know, they
We're
can
going to use.
they can stay focused, and they also are able to um, be present in the reading. Now, I noticed that he was also asking the student for the word graveling, right? And I want you to notice, and I mean, not notice, I'm sorry. I want you to remember that the teacher was, when he was trying to help the student get the meaning of the word, one of the things that he did is that he gave him an example of the word in the text. Like, he gave him a context for that word. So this chart that I have over here is something that I also use in the classroom. It's called a Fryer model. I don't know if you're familiar with, but the Fryer model also helps with, characteristics of the word, examples, and non-examples. So thinking in like having in mind all those three students that we had at the beginning, my students that wrote isolated words, and I also had one student that wrote sentences, but I also had one student that make was able to write a big chunk of information. So based on their level, they're gonna be able to interact with this chart. However, they're all gonna be able to write something. So notice the definition of the word over here, but I want you to notice here in the non-example that those are like more like a list of example. That's probably more like a level 2, but then the word what we have over here, like on the definition, it looks like a level 3. Um, if you feel that you are working with a group of students that are not very familiar with the vocabulary, or the vocabulary is gonna, help, it's gonna make them struggle a little bit, one thing that I do is that I switch it up, of course, depending on my students' need. And instead of writing, for example, non-examples, I will write, for example, drawing of the word, like give me a drawing of what this means. And instead of using the word example, I will use the word sentence, like can you provide a sentence of this word, which is basically the same, right? And if I'm in an ESL classroom or in a Spanish classroom, I also replace for the word non-examples by the word translation. And I ask the students to translate, or I can also change that non-example for the word connection. And I ask them, for example, can you connect this word to something else? Like we're talking about reptiles here. What can you connect that word? Can you connect the reptile, for example, with a dog, or can you connect it to a mammal? They're so the student can make a connection based on their knowledge, and then you can ask them like, why are you making this connection? Like, how are they similar to you? How do you, relate those two? Or why these two are not related? And then when it comes to the characteristic, you can always ask for more details to the student in order to make them speak. Now, simplified question. Following my same principle of the three students, that's what I have in mind always. I work with project-based learning. So when I do project-based learning, that I was telling you that we're always taking students from point A to point B. What we do when it comes to project-based learning is that we take all the objectives of whatever we are intended to teach the student during that unit, and instead of doing isolated things, like I'm gonna write this piece over here and I'm gonna do this reading, I build up a project for them. I build up a project for them that it can it has to be in most of the time it's writing, because it's a language classroom that has some speaking elements, of course. But that part of the process, remember that I told you that I had so many points before getting to that final line. So one of the things that I start my project with is I always start my project with questions. See, and I have my simplified questions that in this case these are my big unit questions, but I'll always have simple questions, like going from a basic level to something more elaborate. Remember that I told you that I'm talking about immigration. So I'm going to start over by asking my students, what is a family? And then how do families' interactions change when you change to a different environment? And then the last one, but not least, how can the life of a child be when the family moves to another country? And then I can tell the students, okay, we're gonna do a turn and talk. You're gonna talk to the person next to you. And then that turn and talk, you are going to pick one of the questions off the board, which are these over here. And you are going to tell them, what do you think of that question? Or you can explain yourself um, using that question. And you can express your point of view. So that's how I do simplify question, and it's really, this is something very practical because everyone has something to say. And I remember I was very skeptical at the beginning of this question because I had never used them before, so I had no idea what was gonna happen. But at the end, like they were all talking and they all had something to say. What I do now is that I ask them to record themselves, and I'm going to show you a platform later on so you can use them with your students as well. Now, this is my do now in the classroom. This is a clear example of one of the things that I do in the classroom. This is what I do. For example, when the student gets inside the classroom, this is what's on the board for them to do. I want you to notice that I have the three levels over here. I have green sauce, mild, and I have spicy. One of the things that I had a lot of problems with when I moved here is that there was, of course, a cultural shock. But that cultural shock, it implied a lot of things. But the main one was, behavior. So I noticed that because I was a new teacher and I had like no idea of like several things in the classroom, one of the things that would happen is that my students were all over the place because there was not a clear outline on the classroom. And if when I started like putting things in place, when the outline was clear, there was a very like the bar was set too high for the students. So I started reading about scaffolding, and I noticed that I had to not lower my expectation, but adapt my expectations to the level that I had in the classroom. So if you can see over here, I have one for the expert, one for the middle learning, and one from the beginner learning. So on this one that says green sauce, if you're not familiar with cognados or cognates, what you are supposed to do is like look for the words that are similar to the English words when it comes to speaking or the writing. So that way, if I have a student who is new, um, learning Spanish or is new learning English, everyone has something to do, or everyone can sit down and find something to do in the work, so that way no one is just walking around, no one is talking, and no one can say that they're not supposed to be doing anything, which is something that I just don't like in the class. So that way everyone is held accountable for what they're supposed to do, and everyone is engaged in the activity. So you're gonna walk into the classroom and everyone is just sitting down and doing something. Same thing about distance learning. So I use a different platform for my do nows now, but they all have, the same differences. They all have something according to their level. Now, I wanted to show you this one over here that's called a name generator. So a name generator is is something that I really like to use in the class. When I'm doing something, when I'm doing an activity with the students, one of the things that I do for, in order to have everyone, okay, in order to have everyone engaged, is that I like to make sure that people is paying attention. And how am I going to do that? I am going to be calling out names of the students, and I'm going to be making sure that they're just paying attention, or that they're just being attentive to the reading, or to the oops, the link is not working, I'm sorry. Now, procedural scaffolds. This is the other set of scaffolds that I told you that I was going to share with you. In this one, I'm talking about explicit models, about visual, through visual gestures and realia. I'm sure that everyone is, familiar with realia, which is super important in the language classroom. Also, visual tools or organizer for the students to manipulate their information according to their level, which is also a key element. Use waiting time or asking questions to give all the students an opportunity to respond. Provide discussion prompts or sentence frames to support those discussions. And allow students to collaborate with one another often as they discuss the learning. Remember, we're working in groups. This is something, according to Vygotsky, this is a social process. And we are engaging to one another because we are being an active participants of our learning process. Now, examples. I have my examples of realia. Over here, well, when to use realia, the pros, the lesson, or the guidelines. So in this one over here, I really take advantage when it comes to, a language teacher of realia, because I think that this is the cheapest, um, the cheapest thing to bring in the classroom, something that you have, something that you can borrow, or just bring an object, like a student can bring an object and we can do the lesson around that. But now that we're virtual, you can practically show your student everything. You can show them videos, and it's gonna be easier to show an object to a student using a computer screen. And now graphic organizers. Remember the first chart that I show you, that because the teacher was asking something to the student and they were talking about definitions. So in that one over there, one of the things that I really like about that one started with the conversation that the teacher and the student were having about that dog that was in the that was lost, and that was also part of the reading. So that helped the student to make a connection to several things in the same word, so that that can generate the knowledge of the students in order to to create a word web like this one, or the friar model like the one that I show you. You can put, for example, like the topic in the middle and have a group of 4 students and just put it in the middle of the table, and then tell them like, okay, I need you to connect this topic to as many words as you can, and then have a conversation based on that. Now, wait time. This is also, to me, this is very important. If you give a student something to do, if you give them something to do and you're just not gonna tell them how much they have to do it, they're just gonna take forever. So for this activity, to show you an example, I want to give you this, and I would like you to ask you to scan this QR code that's on your computer. You're going to open your phone camera, and you're going to scan it over here. And I need you to answer that Padlet over there while I start my timer over. Okay, so now that you went already to Padlet, I don't know if you were familiar with Padlet.com, but Padlet is free. One of the things that I really like about this, it's also limited. If you have a free version of it, I think that you can just only like have like 3 Padlets at the same time or something like that. But if you're using, for example, Google Classroom, you can easily link it to your Padlet, and that way you can have your students just go to your Padlet and then you answer questions, and you can be on your computer or on your phone and be checking whatever they're writing, um, and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, and they have the time that they need to uh, write. You know. Now, the next one that I have over here are the sentence starters. So the sentence starters, I want you to look at both of the examples that I have. I have the one over here on my right, the cooperative prompts. So this one are more, to talk in a group. And these ones are in order to make the question and also the example on how to answer that question. So over here, like the first one, it says, Can you explain? Can you show me? That's, I think that that's like the easiest way to start a conversation and to have your student, come up with something related to the topic that you're doing. And then on the other hand, as a speaker, I can say or ask, I think that, or that reminds me of, and then take the conversation from there. How would I use this in the language classroom? I would use it, for example, like, I would say in the class, for example, like, let's create breakout rooms if you're using Zoom, or if you're using Microsoft Teams, because I'm using Microsoft Teams. I would use also breakout rooms, and make sure that I have my leader, and that leader is going to have the responsibility of having to record their answer, or you're going to be partnered with someone else in those groups, and then you're going to respond that, I mean, you're going to record that person's answer, and the other one is going to record yours, and the other way around. And also the sentence starters, I can do it, for example, if I'm showing a topic, like, I can show my students a paragraph, like, in the screen, and I will tell them, okay, I need you to tell me what's something that you see here, what's in here in this paragraph, and I want you to start with one of these sentences over here that can be probably a vocabulary that I'm targeting on the lesson, or a vocabulary that I want my students to learn, so that way they can start practicing by typing it, you know. Now, some more examples of how to do this with the online learning. So I want you to go to this platform that I have over here, this website, that's join.nearpod.com, and I want you to write the password that I have over here, join.nearpod.com, and I want you to, okay, to type the password. So when you type the password over there, you are going to see a you are going to see this it's going to ask you to enter the code. Okay, and you are going to enter the code, and you're going to be here, or you can just go to nearpod.com. Like, my code is 95XIN, capital letters. I'm going to join the lesson. And I'm going to access to the platform with, if I have a Google account, I can use my Google account in order to access the presentation, which I think is like the easier. So once when I get there, I will see a lesson about uppercase and lowercase letters. This is a writing lesson for elementary students. So in this one, you have the instructions for the student. I'm just gonna change this really quick. Hold on. Bear with me 1 second while I go to Nearpod and show you what does that look like. What are you gonna see on your screen? Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. I was already logged in with my teacher password. So I'm gonna log in with my code, the one that I was showing you on the screen. So that's 95 and 95XIN. 95. Sorry, I'm gonna start sharing so you can see. Thank you. So I have, like I said, nearpod.com. I'm sorry for the mix-up. So the code 95XIN. I'm going to join the lesson. And this platform, we have it in the district for free, but you can also get it, no, not for free. They pay for it. They pay for it. So we have premium features, but I was looking for it and you can get it for free. There's a teacher version for free that you can take advantage of where you're working with your students online. And this is like super, super practical. So I'm just gonna log in with one of my Google accounts. And this is what the lesson looks like. So this is a scaffolded version for, I think it's a second grade for uppercase and lowercase letters. Remember always having our students in mind, like who is like the level 1, who's my level 2, and who's my level 3. So I have here the writing part of the instruction, but I also have a speaking part. See, so I'm going to play those instructions for my students.
About this activity. Today, you will complete an activity to help you practice your ability to match and write uppercase and lowercase letters. Remember, identifying uppercase and lowercase letters will help you become a better reader.
And on this part, I can either be like, I have this one that I just uploaded, but this one was created or generated by the system, but you can easily do one like this one. In this part over here, um, the students can click on this note, and then they can take notes. They can save them to Google Drive. And again, it's going to ask you to open your account. You allow them. So if you're using Google Classroom, it asks you to select the folder. So you can just write whatever notes, and then this is going to be saved to your Google Drive. And this one is like, it's like a presentation, but it allows you to interact with your student. It allows you to give them several exercises as part of the process, so that way you're not only going to be presenting something for them, but they're also going to be participating. So I have here, write the missing upper or lowercase letter. I'm assuming that by this point I already explained to them what that means, you know. So I'm gonna start. They can either like draw it. Remember that I told you that it was like really important, like that student, like that 1, 2, 3, like that classification, so I can have everyone in mind when I'm doing my work. So I want my students to write them with a marker. So I'm gonna write that uppercase over here, and I'm just gonna write it over here. But then I have another student who's probably more skilled and he wants to type it. So I'm just gonna move this over here, and I'm gonna move and type my letter, letter C, and that's it. And I have those two. And then same things with the one lowercase letter. I can do it writing with the same techniques. And then I submit my work, that the teacher is gonna have access to that. Now, I'm asking my student, I'm stopping here and I'm asking my students, how do they feel identifying those uppercase letters? And I have color coding. Remember when I was doing my do now that I had like my green sauce, I have my mild sauce, and I have my spicy sauce. So I have always the red one is gonna be like the hot point. Like I'm confused, or like this is the top. So I have like, how are you gonna tell me? I need you to circle this. Like, are you confused? Are you ready to move on? Or you new practice? Like, I'm gonna slow down, and that way the teacher can do it, and she's gonna decide later on. She's gonna give you more exercise or not. So that's Nearpod. That's one of the ones that I use in the language classroom that you can also use, because like I said, this one is like, you know, like a free website. This is what we're reading right now in the Spanish class. It's called The House of Mango Street. I'm gonna share with you a small I'm going to be sharing with you a small paragraph of what we're reading in the classroom from The House of Mango Street. And I'm going to share this over here. And here we go. This is a small paragraph of the House of Mango Street. Um, so it's talking about like the kids' first impression once they move to their house, which is located in an immigrant neighborhood. Oops, sorry, which is located in an immigrant neighborhood. So, but the house on Mango Street, remember, read aloud, and I'm also modeling pronunciation, is not the way they told it at all. It's small and red with tight steps in front and windows so small you'd think they were holding their breath. Bricks are crumbling in places, and the front door is so swollen you have to push hard to get in. So that front door is very swollen. You have to push a lot in order to get to that house. Now we're gonna talk about that house on Mango Street. Now I'm asking you again to please scan this code and go to Padlet so we can have a short activity. I forgot to add the timer, so you're gonna excuse me on this one. So I have over here the sample unit on my Padlet. I think you can't see it, I'm sorry. But what I'm asking you is to answer this question. The sample unit is asking you, how would you describe your idea house? So I'm gonna ask you to write, what do you think your house would look like? What do you think the house of your dreams would look like? What would you want your house to look like? And that way we can start our conversation based on your ideals, and then we can take it from there. Now, on the same topic, I have an example of the house of Mango Street. And I have over here some images from the streets, the neighborhood, and the people who's living in those houses. What's the reality that they face over there? Like, what are they doing? How are the kids dressing? Um, Look at the kitchen. What's in the kitchen? And for example, like look at the neighborhood store. What's in the neighborhood store? What things can you find over there? Look at the, look at the kids on the car as well, and then you can have a conversation as well. I have some realia here now that I'm also going to be relating to the House of Mango Street. So the House of Mango Street is from a Chicano author. That's a Mexican American author. So I'm going to be comparing this house to the House of Mango Street. And what do you think? That house are similar? How do you think those houses different? How do you think that house can be compared to the one that you were, for example, writing about a couple of minutes ago on Padlet? So we can probably compare and contrast. How are we gonna do that? Okay, I don't have a chart because let's say I forgot to do that one right now. So we're gonna use the chat, and we're gonna write in Zoom right now in the Zoom chat. While I teach this lesson, I need you to write really quick. What do you think a difference would be between this house and the House of Mango Street, or this house and your house, the house of your dream? Whatever comparison you would like to do, what you want is the student to produce something so you can build up on that learning. Remember that's what we're looking for. Okay, now I needed to go to link.com and go to link.com/dulce.nunes, and you're gonna see over there see over there several classroom, and I need you to select the one that says guest. I am going to open the link.com and select Dulce Nunes. I'm just gonna copy and paste this on my link so you can see what you're gonna find on that link. Give me 1 second, please. Share my screen. Remember that I told you about the speaking part. I need that thinking part. I need that speaking part. So you type on that link.com/Dulce Nunes, and this is what you're gonna see. This is also, I think you can get link for free as well. So I was making sure that there were things or elements that you could look for in Honduras. So you're gonna go and you're gonna click on the first one that says guest. So this is due in 32 days. So you have 32 days to respond to this. Remember that I told you that those things like read aloud, but I really wanted to focus on, the language classroom. So the during distance learning. So I want to do a read aloud, So I'm gonna read this paragraph from the House of Mango Street, which is the same one that I just showed you, that we saw the realia, that we saw already the images, and I have the paragraph again for my students. And this can be a short homework for them. So what I want them is that I want them to read this paragraph from our class story and record yourself. What are you gonna do? So what they're going to do is that they're going to click over here. They're going to start reading the short paragraph. They're going to click again and submit my recording. You can write your name. You can write your email. Um, your email is required in order to receive feedback from your teacher. I always tell my students that if they're not sharing their real name, they get no credit for their homework. So it's really important that you establish boundaries with them when you're doing these types of activities. Um, just to wrap our presentation, I hope you have takeaways from this. This is basically at the end, like our scaffolding strategies. Use of the first language. If you notice, I had included something in Spanish. I have my read alouds. I have my modeling by reading to my students. I told you that we can work in breakout rooms for intentional small group or partner group. Remember, if you have those 1, 2, 3 students, we're going to mix them. We're not going to put the ones together and the twos together and the threes together. We're going to have one of each in every classroom or breakout room. We have the sentence structures or sentence starter, like the one that I share. I know because like you're going to help them starting, to answer. Now we're going to connect to background knowledge. How are we going to do that? We can talk about things that we already know or things that are similar to the ones that we're doing, and we can compare and contrast. Just an example, we're going to do big graphic organizers like the Friar model in order to complete the word, context, and visuals and realia. Okay, and at the end, thanks everyone. I hope you enjoyed this presentation that took a lot of work. Those of you who record themselves, you know that this is a lot. You can find me. I'm leaving you my email over here. In case you would like to connect or in case you would like the presentation, I will be more than happy to share with you. Or if you would like to know more about distance learning tools to use in your classroom, I know a couple of them. So if you would like some ideas, feel free to message me. I'll be happy to respond. Um, Thank you, everyone.